Everybody. So this week we start Parshat Vayikra, Sefer Vayikra, the third of the 5 books, Leviticus. And it's called Vayikra in Hebrew because the first word, Vayikra el Moshe, that he called to Moshe. God called to Moshe, V'yidaber Hashem elav, and God spoke to him from the Ohel Moed, and he tells him to speak to Bnei Israel, to instruct the Jewish people when they want to bring a korban, an offering, a sacrifice, and then we get into the laws of that. But it could have started off by just saying, V'yidaber Hashem elav, God spoke to him. What's this extra V'yikra el Moshe that he called to Moshe? So the Talmud deals with that, this seemingly unnecessary extra introduction. So tells us, Lama hikdim kriya ledibor, why is there this initial calling to Moshe before speaking to him to tell him what he wants of him? Limdei Torah derech eretz. The Torah is teaching you manners. Shelo yomar adam davar lechavero. A person shouldn't say something to his friend, to another person, ela im kain karu, unless you first call them by their name. Call them and then get to what you want to speak to them about. What's the manners? What's the derech eretz? What are we talking about here? You see, if you go up to a person and say, hey, I need this, or can do this, or this is how you got to do it, and you just straight get into that, and you don't address them, you don't first acknowledge them, that's very dehumanizing. It's basically, it's selfish. You're just focusing on what you want, and you're not recognizing that you're dealing with another human being. It's all about your needs. And so it's just like, do this. You know, I sometimes see this, sit here at Asia Torah, South Florida. You know, in Florida, we get a lot of travelers, a lot of visitors. And sometimes people will walk by Aish, and they'll see, oh, it's Aish, it's a shul. And they'll walk in, and my office is right near the front door, and they'll come in, and they'll say, when's mincha? What time is the afternoon service? When's mincha? Not excuse me, not sorry to bother you. There's just like, what time is mincha? Is there a kosher restaurant around here? Where can I get a bagel? Where can I get it at? And it's like, this isn't just about your needs. You're talking to a real human being over here. First acknowledge that there's a human being before you get into what you need from that human being. And so that's like with anything. I've mentioned this many times before. I learned this from my wife. You go to a restaurant, you have a server, they're there to serve you. That's their job. Still ask them their name. They're a real person. You know, give them the dignity of acknowledging that they're a human being. And that's what God was doing. He didn't just tell Moshe, this is what you got to tell the Jews when they bring an offering. V'yikra el Moshe. He first calls him over. Moshe. Moshe, he acknowledges him. If God does that, because let's face it, if God would tell you to do something, sure, no problem, you know. We don't have to go through the niceties over here. Whatever you need, God. If God is willing to do that, kal v'chomer, all the more so, we should be willing to do that. To acknowledge the humanity of another person before we speak to them, before we make a request from them. Now, I'll confess, I have difficulty with this when it comes to texting. You know, to me, texting is just like kind of like bottom line, you know, just like do this, do that, da da da. And I notice with younger people, because texting, I guess, is a more legitimate form of communication as opposed to speaking. So there'll be good morning first, like you have to GM before you make the request. Okay, I'm learning, you know. But in texting, some people have that sensitivity. I think older generation people, not as much. But the point, once again, is you can never lose sight of the fact of the humanity of another person. You're in a store, you're dealing with the salesperson. Don't just go up to them and say, you know, where are the pants? Where are the socks? Where can I find the shoes? You know, da, da, da. It's like, recognize that they're a real person. Just today, there's the sprinklers have been going off in front of Aish. And since the clock changed, so the sprinklers are kind of on as we're about to come into Shacharit in the morning, a little bit before 7 o'clock. And I saw the sprinkler guy out there. So I went up to him and I spoke to him about it. But I made sure to ask him, what's your name? What's your name? Pete. Okay, Pete, thank you very much. And I schmoozed with him a little bit. But he's not just there to be my servant to do something. He's a human being. I needed a favor from him. I asked him to fix something that will make our lives a little bit easier here at Eshet Torah when we come in for morning services for Shacharit. Treat him as a human being. That's why God first calls Moshe before he asks him of anything. He acknowledges and recognizes the humanity, the dignity of the man before he asks him to do anything. Have a good Shabbat.